Hello, my name is Jordan Wilder. In today's video, I will be discussing how I can apply 3 major required lessons and what I have learned from this class into journalism. I chose journalism because it is rooted in valuable research, analytics, and writing. Journalists take knowledge that they gained and use it as context for their reports. To be a journalist, one must be able to understand the complexities of the topic they are addressing. This class has taught me to analyze and question lessons for better comprehension, as well as frame information in a way that displays knowledge. To support my argument that I can apply the knowledge that I have acquired from this class into journalism, it is fitting for me to start with how colonialism impacted Africa, more specifically African governance structures. One of the most important things that I have learned is that colonial powers imposed artificial boundaries and centralized administrative systems on diverse ethnic communities, which caused long-term political instability and many internal conflicts in African nations that they still face today. In journalism, understanding government structures is essential, especially when covering politics, elections, or policy. People rely on journalism to stay up to date with news and be informed about political developments, which is critical in Africa, where governance is complex and shaped by deep historical factors. By understanding how colonialism influenced today's political systems, journalists are better equipped to report stories that are accurate, balanced, and historically grounded. Take Nigeria, for example. Because of British colonial rule, the country was forced together despite having different political traditions. I mentioned this in the last video assignment for this class. The Hausa Fulani were politically centralized, the Igbo were less centralized, and the Yoruba were semi-centralized. This led to many tensions and military coups. Journalists take historical context like this to explain why situations happen, how it influences the present, and why considerably simple issues are actually complex. The second key acquired knowledge that I can use in journalism is globalization in democracy and development. Globalization influenced continental development through trade, foreign investment, and technological advancements. Journalism plays a role in globalization by reporting that development. It is not just about documenting events, but journalism also incorporates the way a nation presents itself to the world. In post-independence Africa, journalism became a powerful tool for both internal unity and international diplomacy by promoting social change, serving as an informative tool, and providing a platform for voices. Take Nigeria, for example. Because of British colonial rule, the country was forced together despite having differing political traditions. I mentioned this in the last video assignment for this class. The Hausa Fulani were politically centralized, the Igbo were less centralized, and the Yoruba were semi-centralized. This led to many tensions and military coups. Journalists take historical context like this to explain why situations happen, how it influences the present, and why considerably simple issues are actually complex. The second key acquired knowledge I can use in journalism is globalization in democracy and development. Globalization influences continental development through trade, foreign investment, and technological advancements. Journalism plays a role in globalization by reporting that development. It is not just about documenting events, but journalism also incorporates the way a nation presents itself to the world. In post-independence Africa, journalism became a powerful tool for both internal unity and international diplomacy by promoting social change, serving as an informative tool, and providing a platform for voices. A demonstration of this takes place during the Cold War. Many African nations use state-run media to promote national identity while also shaping their foreign image, using newspapers, radio, and television. The media has broadcasted African values, challenges, and potential both to domestic and global audiences. Currently, a country's development is not based solely off of GDP, but also cultural infrastructure. This may be access to education, artistic expression, medias, technology, and youth involvement. Journalism supports this by advocating for social change and promoting voices that are usually underrepresented, especially the women and youth of Africa. The third and final key acquired knowledge that is used in journalism is popular culture and nation building in Africa. Popular culture contributes in shaping national identity, resisting injustice, and mobilizing movements. Popular culture is not just about entertainment. It is often used as a form of resistance and political expression. Understanding this helps journalists recognize that stories about music or fashion are usually tied to historical struggles, identity, and power. As an example, in Senegal, hip-hop was being popularized in the 1980s and 1990s as a response to government corruption, economic hardships, and youth frustration. Groups like Positive Black Soul and Kirigui rapped to address inequality, unemployment, and police violence. Their lyrics were more than just art. They were calls to action that connected young people across ethnic and class lines and influenced positive social change. An impactful outcome was the We're Fed Up movement, launched by hip-hop artists and journalists in 2011. It gave the ability to thousands of young Senegalese people to demand democratic reforms and help block the re-election of President Abdoulaye Wade, an alleged corrupted politician. For journalists, movements like this highlight how popular culture can be a mirror of society, reflecting people's struggles, values, and hopes. Covering music, film, and art becomes an important way to track social and political trends, especially in countries where formal institutions might not reflect the public voice. Journalists usually tend to highlight stories like these, not just for their creative value, but for what they reveal about society. Knowing the historical context behind cultural movements help journalists ask better questions and avoid oversimplified reporting. Popular culture also creates spaces for youth leadership and women's empowerment and cross-cultural dialogue. In many African nations, it's through music, fashion, or online activism that real change begins. And journalism has the power to amplify that change to a broader audience. In conclusion, this class has changed the way I think, not just about African history, but about the role that journalists play. The knowledge I gained goes far beyond dates and facts. It has given me a deeper understanding of how history, politics, and culture are connected, and how those connections shape the world journalists report on today. Africa's aftermath from colonialism, for example, taught me that political systems don't exist in a vacuum. They come from somewhere. They're shaped by power, conflict, and often injustice. I now know the importance of looking at the roots of a story, not just the surface. Similar to a journalist's approach, they're able to provide the kind of thoughtful, accurate, and meaningful reporting that people can trust, especially when covering regions like Africa that are often misrepresented in mainstream media. The lesson on globalization reminded me that journalism doesn't just reflect a country's development, it actually participates in it. By giving people a platform to speak, by sharing underreported stories, and by holding governments accountable, journalism helps build stronger democracies and more informed societies. There are stories that matter not just because they're urgent, but because they help people understand the bigger picture. And finally, studying African popular culture showed me that history lives not just in textbooks, but in art, in music, in fashion, and in everyday people. Those cultural expressions are powerful. They show how people resist and how they survive. Journalists uplift these voices, not just the political leaders or global headlines, but the artists, the youth, the communities that are shaping the future in real time. This class has taught me to think critically, research deeply, and that there's always a story beneath the surface.